Welcome to the Heartification podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. She's a career coach, former business professor, and author. Please welcome my next guest, Sarah Vermunt.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being on my podcast.
My pleasure.
So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
I define art kind of broadly. I think art is anything that expresses creativity and comes from inside of you and somehow gets to the outside.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Like, my definition is any way you're able to express yourself, and that can be anything and everything, and everyone can be an artist, and no matter what they do. And, when I was little, I used to think art was just painting, dancing, sculpting, like the basic things that you think of when someone says art.
Yeah.
But if you actually think about it, art can be anything. Like this computer that I'm seeing you is an art because someone had to design it, and they took what was inside of them, like you said, and put it out into the world.
That's true. It's a great definition.
And what art forms are you exposed to?
Oh boy. Probably lots that I even take for granted on some days. The art forms that I love the most, probably, I'm a writer, so I really love words and books. I'm a big reader. I really love photography, and I play with photography a lot, just myself, just for fun. I love design and interior design. I love music. So those are some of the biggies that come to mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like how you mentioned how you did photography just for yourself, because sometimes we need to just do artistic things just for ourselves. It doesn't mean you need to write a story and put it out into the world. You can write a story just for yourself, or you can take really cool photos just for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Or make something just for one person, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to go put it out into the world and have all the society saying, oh, well, this is not good at all. You can just see it for yourself. And if it makes you feel happy, you don't have to go and show everyone.
Yeah, that's right. It's up to you. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you use creativity in what you do?
Well, I'm a career coach, and I help people make career changes and start businesses. So in my work, the way I use art and creativity is by helping people to think differently, actually, about work and about jobs and about career paths. And I know you're not in the work world yet, but there's a way we tend to think about work, and it's very linear and it's very serious. And when people feel stuck in their work, it doesn't help to think of it in a serious way. It helps to get them unstuck when they think of it in kind of a playful way. So I have all sorts of fun exercises and workbooks and things that I've made to help people think about work differently, to help them get unstuck. So I think I'm a little bit creative in the way I help people be playful around their work.
Yeah, I love that. And I think with anything, it's important to have a good attitude and not think of it as, oh, I have to, for example, if it was work, oh, I have to go to work, another work day. You can think of it as something else that you love, and you go in with a positive attitude, and then overall it's just a better experience.
Sure. Yeah, that can be true.
Yeah. And what are some creative things you do to help people with their careers?
Well, I've written 2 books to help people with their careers. So that's definitely something creative that I've done to help people with their careers. The other thing I do, and I think you will recognize this as creative, but maybe not everybody would. I ask people really good, interesting, unconventional questions. And I think that's a really creative thing to do. And I think that sometimes if you get someone who asks you a question that you haven't had before, it helps you to think differently. And so I think that's actually a really powerful thing to do in a creative way.
Yeah, definitely. And the good thing about that is that other people around you can influence how you think as well. And if someone asks you a really different interesting type of question. It'll get you thinking, and then that'll be in the back of your mind, and then you'll talk about that with your friends, like get them thinking, and then just keeps on going.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. And that's why it's so important to have lots of good people around you and lots of different people around you to help you think differently, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really great, like even in like a classroom or whatever, so many students have different like abilities and different talents.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how everyone has their own talents. And if you work in a group, everybody inputs their ideas based on their different experience that they've had. And it'll be different because of their talents and what they've been exposed to and all that stuff.
That's a great example. And you know what? It's exactly the same in the work world as it is in the classroom. All these people come together and they all have different talents. And without everybody's talents coming together, you probably wouldn't have something turn out as good as it would with everybody's different contributions.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I see writing as an art form. So do you feel you're able to express yourself while writing your books?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And actually, um, a lot of people want to write books and they think it's a very glamorous thing to do. And, they think about the book tours and book signings and all that stuff, which is wonderful. I have to say, like, I love all that stuff too. But for me, the magic isn't necessarily just in the publishing of the book and getting it in people's hands so they can read it. But it's a really special process just to be with me and my notebook and get my ideas from my head onto paper. And when I look back at the 2 books I've written, that was actually the most magical part for me, when it was just me and my notebook and my ideas and whatever creative muses were floating around me, helping to make this beautiful thing that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And do you see speaking as an art form? And if so, why?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't until you asked that question, because you emailed me the questions in advance. And I thought, that's a really cool question. I hadn't thought of speaking as an art form. But then I thought, well, I know I've heard some really powerful speeches in the past. And it's, it's a little bit different than performance, a speech. But like, I do think that speaking can certainly be an art form. And there's all sorts of different kinds of speaking, right? So there's like, someone speaking in front of a large crowd, right? That's probably a well-crafted, creative thing that they've done. And then there's the kinds of speaking that we do, like just you and me having a conversation here. And actually, I think in both ways, it can be an art form, certainly for more like traditional speeches to the masses, but also maybe in conversation, because when people have a conversation, they come together and it's a collaboration and you're sort of making something together out of nothing. So I thought it was a great question and it made me look at speaking differently.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And you can express yourself when you're speaking. If you're really passionate about a topic that you're talking with a group of people about, you can just express yourself and say what you want. And I think the really cool thing, especially about like speaking in front of an audience, is that if you express yourself and just say what you want to say, people will connect with it more and relate what you're saying to their own life, instead if it's just kind of just something you've repeated over and over again.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? I would say it's the same thing for podcasts. So I know a lot of your podcast episodes are about a half hour long. And so maybe there will be like 2 minutes or one thing you say or I say in a podcast, or something another guest says in your podcast that really resonates with people and they really respond to it and it relates to them. So I think it can be true for podcasts as well.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And art can be therapeutic and it can help people through difficult situations. So has art ever helped you through a difficult situation?
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. In the biggest way, I would say books as an art form. The written word has probably helped me more than anything else. You can see just some of my books behind me here on the video you're seeing. But yeah, I mean, I've encountered some difficult things in my life, and I always think it's really interesting when you just stumble upon the right book at the right moment in time, and it's exactly what you needed to help you through that thing that you're struggling with. And that's happened to me lots and lots of times in my life. And I've always been really, really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think writing is a really good way to just get all your feelings out. Like a lot of people go to writing in a journal or in a diary when they want to, write how their day was. And I remember when I went to India
Mhm.
with my family, I used to write what we did each day. And a lot of my family lives in India. So we would go to different people's houses and do different things. And I would write it all in my diary or journal or whatever. And even when we went to Winnipeg to visit my grandparents, I did that as well. And now I look back and I can remember all of the memories and all the fun times. It's just amazing. It was so
Yeah,
fun.
that's a nice way to create memories, right? Because there's probably no way that you'd remember all that now if you didn't have those books. I journal as well. So, I mean, I write professionally as a part of my job in writing books, but also some mornings I will journal, and that's just for me. You know how you were saying sometimes art can be just for you? Journaling is certainly something like that. And I think it's really good to do that at any age, even if it's just a regular old day and there's nothing that exciting to say. Sometimes it's nice to just sit with your thoughts, and to have those thoughts and feelings come out onto paper can be really beneficial, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And, I think it's important that, with the whole stress of different things going on in your life, that sometimes you just sit down and you can write in a journal, or you can paint, or you can write a song, or just listen to music, or any way you can just like be in a calm state of mind. I think it's important that we do that every once in a while, because then it improves your attitude and your mindset.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, like you say, journaling does that, but you also mentioned, you could paint, you could make music, whatever. And I think the common thread there goes back to your definition and my definition of art. And that is having something inside of you and finding a way to express it and get it out. And it doesn't really matter how you get it out, but you find some way to express that. And it always feels better after you do that, even if you're struggling with a problem and the problem isn't necessarily solved yet. There's something really special about sort of working through it, or thinking through it, or feeling through it by making something.
Yeah, definitely. And are you attracted to any particular artist?
Oh, yeah, lots of different artists. So, um, for visual artists, two people come to mind, and they're both kind of like fun, funny, but also really wise artists. There's a guy on the west coast of Canada named Mark Johns, and I have a couple of his prints, and he creates really kind of fun, cute, whimsical art prints. There is a woman in the United States, and her name is Lisa Congdon, and she has a really cool kind of Scandinavian style of digital art. And she does a lot of art pieces with words also, that are either about personal development or about social justice. And I just love everything that she makes. Now, those are visual artists. Um, I'm also a huge reader, as I said, and I count those folks as artists, certainly. One of my favorite authors is a woman named Martha Beck. She's actually the person I studied under to become a coach. So I've been following her work for a long time. And the reason why I love her writing so much is because she has like this interesting little mix of characteristics in her writing. She's very, very wise and loving, but she's also kind of like quite funny and kind of snarky, and kind of makes jokes about herself. It's almost like she wears her neuroses on her sleeve. So I really like her. I love people like Elizabeth Gilbert. She's another wonderful writer. Um, I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of people I could talk about behind me. There's another thing I love, although I don't follow anyone specifically. I'm a big fan of interior design. And I don't follow any designers specifically, but I do think there's something really beautiful about making the space you're in as lovely as it can be, and making it feel as good as it can, especially at a time when we've all been spending lots and lots of time at home. This room I'm in right now is my living room. It's been my office. I've been spending a whole lot of time here in the past year and a half. So interior design is something that I really, really admire and enjoy too. If you were to look at the list of accounts I follow on Instagram, I'd say a good quarter of them are interior design accounts.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the really cool thing about interior designing is how, like, if you were to step into the room, it gives like kind of like an aura or whatever based on the different colors that is used. Like, maybe if it's blues, it gives you like a calm color. If it's
Mhm.
like a nice bright orange and reds and stuff, it might give you like a warm kind of feeling,
Yeah.
which is really cool. With just the different colors and all of that, it can make you feel different.
Yeah, you're right. And the word aura is a nice way to describe it because it means it's very evocative. There's a feeling attached to it, right? It's almost like there's like a spiritual element to it where you sort of interact with the space you're into and it makes you feel a certain way. It's I know whenever I'm in a space that is a bit chaotic or like messy, I just can't handle messes. Do you ever find you're in a space where the space feels kind of bad to you and then all of a sudden you get grumpier or you're not able to focus on your work or something? For me, lovely organized spaces makes me feel much calmer.
Me too as well. Like I hate mess. Like in the whole house, my room is the most organized. Everything has its own place. It's the most clean. There's nothing on the floor.
Yeah.
Everything's in the shelves. So I hate mess as well. Like everything needs to have its own place. It
Yeah,
needs to be all neat. There should be like no weird things anywhere.
I agree 100%. I was exactly like you when I was your age. I have four younger brothers. We lived in a big, crazy, messy farmhouse, and my room was the only one that was like organized and clean. And it was just like a nice space for me to go and relax.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And are you attracted to any particular art form?
Um, yeah, I mean, a few different ones. Certainly, I'm a big reader, so that's one. Music has been more important to me, I would say, over the pandemic than it typically has been in the past. And so I've been exploring just listening to different types of music. And I've been lucky enough to have met some different people who've introduced me to different kinds of music. Sometimes you need someone to introduce you to something that you might not stumble upon on your own, not just for music, but really anything. Um, there is an art form that I love that I bet a lot of people don't talk about on your podcast. I am a huge, huge fan of street art. So, like street graffiti artists. And I'll tell you why I love it. I love street art. I've loved it for years, for years. You know how I said I'm a photographer, like I sort of like just do photography for myself.
Yeah.
A lot of it is street art. I love street art because it's always something that you just stumble upon. You're not expecting to see it, but maybe you go past an alley and you'll see something really cool, or you drive under an underpass for a highway and all of a sudden there's these like beautiful murals that you weren't expecting to see. And I think it's the surprise factor for street art that I love so much, because you're just going about your day in an environment and you come across something that's beautiful that you didn't expect to see.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing with street art, like sometimes it like people view it as like vandalism and destroying a property, and sometimes it can be that if it's bad words and all that stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be like beautiful. And I remember when Kobe Bryant had just passed away, I saw this like street art with that was him and his daughter, and it was amazing. And graffiti is usually viewed as something bad, but it can be used for good.
Yeah, that's right. I actually think that you're exactly right about that. I think graffiti, if it's just someone tagging or writing their name or something, it's like, okay, like just don't wreck that wall. But what I've noticed over the past 10 years or so is there are a lot more individuals and businesses actually commissioning and paying street artists to come and do beautiful murals on their buildings and their offices, on their garage doors, for example. And so it's kind of cool that the reputation of street art is changing, and that it's not really viewed as much anymore as just vandalism, and that it's viewed as a more legitimate art form, especially the stuff that's commissioned by people and paid for.
Yeah, exactly. And my heartification project is all about giving back to the community. So how do you give back to the community?
I think that's a great question because I think it's important for us to think about that. I do that in a couple of different ways. I am a big sister with Big Sisters and Big Brothers. I don't know if you've heard of that organization. So there's a girl that I work with who I met when she was 11, and I've now been working with her for 10 years as a mentor. So I met her when she was younger than you, still in elementary school, and I've gotten to know her over 10 years and mentor her a little bit. Saw her off to university, and I'm still mentoring her as a young adult, and that's a really meaningful thing that I've done for a while. I also see a lot of the work I do as giving back to the community, because I think it's really important that people have work that makes them happy. If you think about how much time people spend at work, it's the majority of your day. And so I think it's important to find something that feels like it's a good fit for you. And there are a lot of people in jobs that they feel like that job isn't a good fit for them. So I try to give back by helping people find something that's a good fit. And, I do that sometimes because in a way where people pay me, my clients, but not everybody can pay to work with a career coach. Not everybody can afford that. So I have written books that people can get for free at the library. I have a totally free course that people can take. So I'm trying to help all sorts of different people in different ways with my work too.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's amazing. And how would you like people to get in touch with you?
Well, my website is called Careergasm.com. Because I help people find work that feels good, and they can find me at Careergasm on Instagram and all of the social media too.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been awesome to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.